submissions, but of back to back. So if you want to kind of have one and then the other, or if you want to spend a bit of time traversing across, I don't mind, whatever suits you.
Thank you. I'll do one and then the other.
Yep, good.
And this is a map for you personally for the one.
Right, so this is the group one?
Yes.
Yep, cool.
So
and again, can I just acknowledge that thanks for going to all of this trouble. There's so much detail, and just love the fact that you've got numbers, you know, the mesh blocks numbers, and yeah, so we really appreciate the trouble you've gone to.
Thank you. Well, as you know, you engaged me for some of the work,
I know.
And that's the second part, along with Councillor Shearing to do one as well. But as a result of the work that you engaged me to going up on the website, I was approached by 3 local groups, one of whom, after they'd heard what I had to say, asked me to present on their behalf, and that's this first one. And it relates to the Woolston ward in particular. You should have 2 maps, each of you going with the short 2 pages that the submission comprises. And the first one, which is a photocopy of the street map, marks out the area of Woolston Village, in fact, all of Woolston Village, that is not in Woolston ward. Mm. It also marks out another area of Woolston, the old part where the workers used to live down near the tannery and so forth, which is assigned in the initial proposal to go into the Cashmere ward. So in those 2, and I appreciate this is the initial proposal, but they are significantly in breach of the guidelines that you are asked to work to. In the latter sense, the area of Woolston that's placed in the Cashmere ward is grouping together 2 or more communities that have little commonality, and the other area of Woolston that's put in the Linwood ward is divided between, means that Woolston itself is divided between 2 wards, so that's a split community. I think these are both quite significant issues, and the Woolston in particular, there are a number of measures of what comprises Woolston, but of course in the area of Woolston that is assigned to Linwood, virtually every shop or business premise in that area has got the word Woolston in its name. All the churches in the Woolston area are in the Linwood ward as well. There is, and it's not shown on this map, an area of Aranui between Breezes Road and Shortland Street, which is in the Linwood ward, separated from the balance of Aranui, which is in the Burwood ward. I'd like to move to a solution, which is what I've tried to work with these people to get, and that's the second map, and it's a little busy, and I'll take you through it. It's the one that shows the mesh blocks, if you've all got that. So the heavy dark marking is the ward's boundaries as proposed in the initial proposal, and I've used highlighter pen to mark some changes. So the first change that could be achieved would be to take that area of Woolston, bounded by Linwood Avenue, Ferry Road, and that's pretty well in the centre of the map. It's got a red line on 2 sides of it, and it's got a yellow border. If that part of Woolston that's currently within the Linwood ward is moved back into Woolston, that's part of the reuniting of Woolston, and if the area that's within Cashmere is also taken back into Woolston, that's the little area below it, then Woolston as a suburb, as a community, is reunited and is no longer split. However, the Woolston ward is too large by population, so you've got to start taking population out of it to create the proportionality that's required. The area of Phillipstown, which is bordered there by a red line and an orange highlighter, has got more commonality with the balance of that area around Tuam Street in the Linwood ward, and could be moved, the population in there could be moved into the Linwood ward.
What street's that red line on? Because we're doing mesh block, I'm not seeing street names, so...
No.
Ferry Road.
It's Ferry Road.
That's Ferry Road?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's...
And then what's the bottom line? I thought that was Ferry Road. The street that goes up, you know...
It's Aldwins.
Aldwins Road?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So that's a block, Aldwins Ferry, and that's generally what's known as the heart of Phillipstown, if you like. So that's currently in the Woolston ward and could reasonably be moved into the Linwood ward, combining with the area to the north of it, which is also generally known as Phillipstown. So we've fixed up Woolston. Woolston ward's now got enough population in it, and I'll come to the exact numbers shortly. Then addressing the two other issues with the Linwood ward, we have to take that little block of Aranui out of it back to the Burwood ward to unite that. And then I would argue that the area that's known as Brookhaven, or part of Ferrymead, which is to the east of that small area of Woolston that I've moved back into Woolston, if that joins back to Banks Peninsula Sumner, you've re-established some commonality there. That part of Ferrymead is, I think you'll hear from the Mount Pleasant folk, they think it belongs to them. It's their shopping area, their commercial area, and also the Mount Pleasant School. The zone for the Mount Pleasant School includes that area of Brookhaven / Ferrymead. We've got a small problem with the Linwood ward, however, that it's still a little short of population, and that can be rectified by taking that portion of Burwood that's known as Canada. I understand the street names were assigned because of the tunnel workers on the road tunnel.
Ottawa Street.
Ottawa Street.
Yeah, Vancouver.
Vancouver, yeah. So, are you following the changes, folks?
Yeah.
Quite complicated, but it's actually quite neat in community terms. It makes sense, and the numbers are not too bad. I don't have access quite as completely to the mesh block details that you will have, but with some rounding error, that would result in a small change to Banks Peninsula Sumner, so it sits at 1% under quota, so that's fine. Cashmere's at minus 6.4, which is fine. Woolston's plus 1.3, which is fine. Burwood is minus 4.2, which is fine. And Linwood is minus 10.6. Now that's, I'm calling that margin of error, and I'm not saying that that's where the boundary would need to go to achieve everything, but I'm demonstrating that it's possible to make these changes to reunite those communities in the way I'm suggesting. So, any questions on that, please?
David?
Just with your Burwood and Linwood modifications, you've come up, I think it's Wainoni Road, and then up to Shortland Street. I'd suggest that perhaps there's a wee bit of a division in that Aranui community going down Shortland Street. You're probably dividing it a bit there. I would suggest probably Ottawa Road maybe or Bickerton Street may be a better natural boundary between the two, which is just shifting it across one street. And I'm not sure how that mesh block where you've got 177, 39, 177 and 93 probably aligns more to Aranui. But having said that, it's quite an industrial little area in there, so it's probably not going to affect the change of demographics too much.
I agree that Bickerton would be a more ideal boundary from communities of interest, although taking your point that it is a bit of a mixed area.
Yeah.
The issue in the end is, as I'm sure the staff will remind you before this is over, if they haven't already a dozen times, it's getting the right numbers is the real challenge.
But I do agree with you that possibly those that lower end of Kerrs Road around those Canadian streets possibly has a little bit more of an affinity to the Linwood area.
So what is that street? Sorry, I'm having difficulty reading that map again. So with the 177 mesh block, 177, what's that street going down?
Well, the
on
one
the right,
at the top with the red is Shortland Street, and the next
Shortland
one down is Bickerton, and then it goes to Ottawa. So it's down. It's in Shortland at the moment.
Shortland's the back entrance to Aranui High.
Yeah. So I would
What
come
you
back
call
to
split
Bickerton
that
or
street.
Ottawa if it was me in that area.
For what it's worth, they'd probably identify themselves more as Wainoni, which means bend in the river. So if that was brought down into Linwood, I'm not sure whether that would. But you know, from Bickerton downwards, definitely is.
Kerrs
Wainoni.
Road is a natural boundary.
Yes, it is.
It
It's
is,
an existing boundary
absolutely.
at the moment too with the ward.
Well, we might play around with the mesh block. We hear what you're saying, and we might just.
you will have to.
Yeah, we'll have to. We'll have to. In order to achieve the other bits, we need to take some.
I'm demonstrating that
notice.
it's generally feasible.
Yep.
But there's some details that will have to be worked out to make it happen.
Yep. Phil, Pauline, Tim.
Thanks, Martin. Can I just ask you, given that on your calculations, and I accept those, that the amended Linwood ward is down by slightly over 10%, I'm just wondering if in fact, when the people from Ferrymead and Heathcote, when they talk to us about where they might like to be, that will make a difference. But if in fact council was looking at suggesting that the Banks Peninsula ward just be enlarged less, so it might not include Ferrymead and Heathcote, would there be potential for for Ferrymead and Heathcote to be included in the Linwood ward? Or what would be your suggestion around that?
Well, that's what it is currently in there, yeah. And that would make the numbers easier, yes, if you retain them in there.
So is that your current suggestion?
No, my current suggestion is that part of Ferrymead, otherwise known as Brookhaven, has got greater commonality and community of interest with the Mount Pleasant area.
Mount Pleasant, okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yep.
Thank you.
Pauline.
Yeah, well, my question was following along the same lines. Have you got an indicative number of the Brookhaven population that you've taken out by any chance?
I do. I just have to identify it.
Well, the point is that
yeah.
I know reading the submissions, there's issues around the Banks Peninsula. There's quite a few submissions with a different idea. So that could radically change what happens there. And this is going to be a considerable amount of work, I think, for staff. And I believe Bob Shearing and you have been working with staff, have you, on this?
That's the next submission. Is that right?
Yes. It's 1,260.
12, so that's a
those
considerable
people.
number, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I know the area very well. I think that the submission is well made, though. That the connection is with that side, with the Ferrymead side. That's the connection,
Yes.
not the other way.
Yes, I understand that.
Yeah. No, I've got Tim.
Thank you. Thank you. As I went to school on Rutherford Street across the road from Rutherford Cemetery, I can totally understand the north of Cumnor Terrace remaining with Woolston, so I think it's a very good submission, so thank you very much that we got there. Thank you.
Yep. Excellent. All right, thank you for that. And now pop on another